So Joe Polish is kind of this, business guru kind of guy and slash marketing guru, whatever. And but he also has an interest in addiction, I guess, having experienced it himself and being interested in the topic. And he had a way of framing addiction. I think it was him, or at least one of his guests. I don't remember for sure, but where the original thought came from. But he had a way to frame it that was quite interesting, which was addiction was your best solution at the time. And it's very easy to be very judgmental of people who have addictions, and yet probably if we have our own addictions, we probably tend to give ourselves a lot of grace. And I thought it was an interesting way to frame it, as in an addiction is the best solution, or it was your best solution at the time. And it's so clear in many instances that the addiction is a horrible solution. But in terms of the inner logic of the heart, if you will, or whatever compulsive disorder or demonic forces driving you towards a behavior or whatever that cause is, the addiction in that moment seems like the best solution you have. And that's why you keep going back to it time after time. Now, I'm sure there's much more to it than just that, but I do think that was an interesting, if you will, a compassionate way to frame it. And I feel like when it comes to the addiction discussion, of course, there's many kinds of addiction, but I do think that while it's okay to be very frank and forthright about a bad addiction being being bad for you and being bad for others around you, and if it's a sin that's hindering your relationship with God, I think it's great to be very upfront, honest, and not like tippy tap and like tiptoe around discussions of addiction. At the same time, I do think it's important to realize that berating someone for an addiction is probably not that constructive. If they have an addiction, now there are some people, there's a range here, right? And there may be some people who willingly are just kind of dialed into their addiction, and it's a sin lifestyle, and it is like they haven't even tried to get out of it, right? But there are also many people who realize they have an addiction. They want to get free from it, and they don't know how. And so time after time, it keeps being what seems to be the best solution for them in the moment, right? So I think it is important to look at deeper causes than just the behavior itself, and offer hope and offer constructive ideas and support for how to help someone out of addiction. It can be spiritual, it can be providing for physical needs, emotional, relational, helping that person not to be isolated. I think that I'm going on as if I'm some kind of addiction expert, and I'm not, but I think that isolation is, I think the isolating, the idea, like many addictions, some addictions, especially like, for instance, let's say a drug addiction, right, tends to socially isolate you, especially when, like, as it progresses and gets really bad, right? And so I feel like it's a self perpetuating thing, to where the addictive behavior helps to isolate you more, and the isolation makes you more dependent on the addiction. And it's this, I feel like it's this vicious cycle. So I know that some people have posited that one of the keys to getting out of addiction is the opposite. It's having people connected and in relationship rather than having them isolated. And that's part of how you help someone out of that. So anyway, just my thoughts. And hope you found it thought-provoking.